The Collector's Series is back. After a 10-month hiatus, we're dusting off this project, and for the second installment, I've chosen one of the most popular franchises in all of comics, the X-Men. If it's been too long since the last installment and you're wondering what you can expect out of the Collector's Series, let me break it back down for you. In the Collector's Series, I'm going to focus on books related to the topic at hand that may be low-level keys, cool covers, great reads, or just flat-out books that I like and want to recommend to you. I'm going to shy away from some of the larger keys and books that are typically price prohibitive. One of the main goals of this series is to draw attention to issues and titles that may not be on your radar, but also won't drain your bank account if you decide to chase them down. So now that we're caught back up, let's get to the books. Starting off the list in the number 10 spot is Uncanny X-Men 201. Published in January 1986, the Chris Claremont and Rick Leonardi issue is a favorite of mine. Story-wise, you get a classic X-Man vs. X-Man story as Cyclops and Storm duel it out for the leadership role of the X-Men team. On top of that, you also meet Cable for the first time. I mean, he's a baby named Nathan Christopher Summers that grows up to be Cable, but still that counts. This issue is always one of the first to go when I pick up a new collection of 1980s X-Men, as it's been one of the more desirable books from this time period historically. And the best part about Uncanny X-Men 201 is that it's just a fun, affordable issue. A high-grade raw copy will only set you back around $25, making this one of the more affordable issues of significance from that mid-1980s run. Other than the legendary X-Men stories in the comics, there has been nothing more influential for the X-Men other than the X-Men animated series from the Fox Kids network. Debuting on Halloween Day 1992, this series ran for a total of 76 episodes and adapted many of the X-Men's greatest stories for TV. And what is a TV show good for if you can't capitalize on the brand's exposure through the sales of things like a massive toy line from Toy Biz and another comic series, which is where our number 9 book, X-Men Adventures number 1, hails from. Published in November 1992, Marvel wasted no time in getting a tie-in comic series out alongside the new animated series. The Night of the Sentinel story was adapted from Ralph Macchio's script. Andrew Wildman handled the interior art duties, while Steve Lytle provided the cover for this issue. A book that could regularly be found in discount bins in previous years, X-Men Adventures number 1 caught a bit of a bump lately as Disney announced the revitalization of the property with the upcoming X-Men 97 show coming to Disney+, reportedly later this year. Currently bringing upwards of $25 for a high-grade copy, the hot, sticky nostalgia that is oozing from this issue is worth the price of admission. If you've been collecting X-Men for more than 3 minutes, you know there's no shortage of first appearances to track down for your collection. Every decade has their noteworthy debuts, and our number 8 book is one of the most important from the aughts. New X-Men 128, the first appearance of Phantom X. A product of the fabled Weapon X program, Phantom X is also known as Weapon 13. With a cover date of August 2002, New X-Men 128's creative team consisted of Grant Morrison on the story, Iger Cordy on the interior art, and Ethan Van Sciver on the cover art duties. If you're a modern newsstand hunter, then you're in luck, as this issue does have a newsstand edition, but it will cost you quite a bit more than the direct edition, which can be typically found for under $75. What top 10 list would be complete without mentioning a book that has a controversial first appearance claim? Our entry for this episode and our number 7 book is X Factor number 24, the traditionally accepted first appearance of Archangel, despite the fact that Death had 2 prior cameos and made his full appearance in X Factor 23, and he also wouldn't go by the name Archangel until X Factor 38, but never mind all of that. Published in January 1988, X Factor 24 was a family affair, as the creative team was all Simonson, Louise on the script and Walt on the art. Currently, CGC notes that X Factor 24 is the first appearance and origin of Archangel, while Key Collector notes that it's the second appearance and first cover appearance of the character. What we do know is that X Factor 24 is the book that the market puts its money behind, as X Factor 23 can be picked up for $15 to $20, while a copy of X Factor 24 is going to cost you between $40 and $50. 1 year after the Age of Apocalypse showed us what a world without Xavier would look like, our number 6 book, X-Men 53, painted a happy picture of what life with Xavier would look like with the emergence of Onslaught. Professor X, man. You can't live with him and you can't live without him. Onslaught is an entity formed from the worst aspect of both Magneto and Professor X's psyche. You get anger, grief, and vengeance from Magneto, and from Professor X you get frustrations and stress. Sounds like anybody else, actually. Published in June 1996, X-Men 53 features an Andy Kubert cover and interior art with a Mark Waid story titled False Fronts. Onslaught was one of the more memorable characters to come out of a fairly uninspiring period for Marvel Comics, as the company had been struggling for years amid the bursting of the speculator bubble, and would go on to file bankruptcy the same year as X-Men 53 was released. After seeing an increase in interest in 2021, X-Men 53 has settled back down in value around $25 as of the recording of this video. Coming in at the number 5 spot is one of the best X-Men stories ever and one of my personal favorites, Marvel graphic novel number 5, better known as X-Men God Loves, Man Kills. Published in November 1982, God Loves, Man Kills is a self-contained story in the new premium graphic novel format Marvel was experimenting with back in the early 1980s. The story was scripted by Chris Claremont, like almost all X-Men stories from the 80s, and featured art from the very talented Brent Anderson. Introduced in the story are the Purifiers and General William Stryker, and if that name sounds familiar, God Loves, Man Kills was very, very loosely adapted for Fox's X2 all the way back in 2003. As with most of the early Marvel graphic novels, issue number 5 went through multiple printings, so be sure and check inside the cover to see which printing you're looking at before paying that first print price of $30 for a nice copy of this one. Our number 4 book makes the list on the promise of what was to come in the following issue. Coming in at number 4 is X-Men number 132. Published in April 1980, X-Men 132's And Hellfire Is Their Name story is more commonly known as Part 4 of the Dark Phoenix saga. X-Men 132 features the first full appearance of the Hellfire Club, and let's just say it doesn't go that well for the X-Men. After a monumental butt-whooping, Wolverine is the only member of the team still on his feet as the issue closes. The final page of the issue sees Wolverine emerging from the sewer water he'd been blasted into, and is an excellent example of why this run of X-Men is so legendary. John Byrne's art is amazing, and I can hardly imagine the anticipation readers felt when this issue first came out. X-Men 132 is one of my all-time favorite issues from the Austin, Byrne, and Claremont run of X-Men, and while there are other more significant issues in this same story arc, that last panel makes this one worth talking about. And at $65 for a high-grade copy, this one won't break the bank either. I couldn't put together a list of X-Men books with a collector in mind and not include one of the many classic issues of X-Men that legendary comics artist Neal Adams produced in the late 1960s. Submitted for your approval in the number 3 spot is X-Men number 57. Published in June 1969, X-Men 57 was the product of two powerhouse creators, Roy Thomas on the story and Neal Adams on the art. A classic X-Men story featuring one of their oldest enemies, the Sentinels, X-Men 57 also lays the groundwork for the major first appearance that would come in the subsequent issue, as we see the story of Alex Summers continue to develop just before his full reveal as Havoc in X-Men 58. If you're wanting to lean in and spend a little bit more on a collectible X-Men issue, X-Men 57 is a great mid-tier Silver Age option, as VF copies for this book can be had for right around the $100 mark. For a stunning Silver Age Marvel Neal Adams book, that's not too bad at all. Imagine you're producing the hottest comic in the market, and you're in the middle of wrapping up the biggest arc the series has ever seen, an arc that has been years in development, and editorial blows up your ending. Well, believe it or not, that is exactly what happened to Chris Claremont, Terry Austin, and John Byrne with the Dark Phoenix saga. 4 years after the fact, the creative team was finally able to tell the ending to the story as they intended it in our number 2 book, Phoenix the Untold Story number 1. Published in April 1984, Phoenix the Untold Story is a unique book in the hobby, as such issues are relatively few and far between. Reprinting the final chapter of the Dark Phoenix saga from X-Men 137, this 52-page jumbo-sized issue also includes the original 5-page ending of the story, where Jean Grey did not die at the end. Other goodies included here are a wraparound cover from John Byrne featuring Dark Phoenix and the X-Men, a 13-page interview with the creative team regarding the change in the ending, and the original splash page that was intended for X-Men 138. A fantastic companion piece for the Dark Phoenix saga issues, this book can be a bit elusive when you're trying to track a copy down, but is worth the time and effort you spend digging for it. The most affordable book on the list, Phoenix the Untold Story, will only set you back $10. Topping our collector series X-Men Top 10 list is Uncanny X-Men 137. Published in September 1980, X-Men 137 is the final chapter in the Dark Phoenix saga. This issue has a fair amount of significance as the John Byrne cover is a classic and has been swiped on several occasions. Additionally, Jean Grey undergoes her second comic book death in just a few years in this issue. But, as we all know, in comics, no one other than Bruce Wayne's parents and Peter Parker's Uncle Ben ever stayed dead. An interesting item with this particular issue is that the Comics Code Authority seal of approval is nowhere to be found on the cover. According to Roger Stern, the seal was intended to be included on the cover, but either fell off or was accidentally omitted. Austin Byrne and Claremont's Dark Phoenix saga is one of the best comic stories ever told. Making the roughly $50 a nice copy of this book will cost you, well, worth it. We're all patiently waiting for the X-Men to officially join the MCU, and that anticipation has really driven up prices for most of the primary keys for the property. Few intellectual properties within the Marvel Universe are as vast as the X-Men, making them some of the more challenging Marvel characters to collect. Any one of these issues would make a great addition to your collection if you're looking to start in on the X-Men. Happy hunting out there, and don't forget to collect responsibly. I'll see you in the next video.